You're probably doing practice questions wrong, and it might be making you get worse marks on your exams and forcing you to study for hours longer than you need to. My name's Emil, and I'm a final year medical student, and this is the practice exam system that I've used to get high distinctions and an award in medical school, all while studying less than 6 hours a week and working on my fitness, hobbies, and this YouTube channel. In this video, I'll share with you the signs and symptoms that you have a problem with how you do practice exams, why it's holding you back, and how you can fix it. And stick around to the end for a free worksheet and template to apply my system. Let's get started by talking about what happens when things go wrong. And you might recognize that this has been affecting you without you even realizing it. Listen to this scenario and see if you can recognize yourself in it. You have an exam coming up, so you start thinking about doing some practice questions. You do your first exam and you do okay on it. You look at the answers afterwards and you think about the questions that you got wrong, and you realize that some of them you probably could get right next time. You do some revision and you keep going about doing practice questions. And on the next exam, you actually do quite a bit better. You get 15% more than you did before. Again, you review your exam and you pick up on the mistakes you made and you do another practice exam. Except this time you only get 5% better than you did last time, which is still 20% better than when you started, but you're not exactly satisfied with where you're at. You repeat this process again, checking your answers and reviewing them, but this time you actually do exactly the same as you did last time. And when you look at the questions that you're getting wrong, you feel like they're so hard and you can't imagine a world where you'd actually know the answer. All of the questions you seem to be getting wrong seem like they're far too difficult to actually get right, or maybe they look like they just require really detailed knowledge and really specific knowledge that you would have to memorize in order to get it right. You start to get a little bit stressed, so you make some Anki cards on the questions you're not getting right, and you start cramming them and desperately try to memorize everything you need to know. Unfortunately though, after all of the work that you've done, you know that you're not actually close to where you want to be. At the end of the day, you just feel a bit disappointed that you weren't able to do as well as you wanted, even though you were working really hard. If any of that resonated with you, you're probably being affected by some of the most common practice question problems. The good thing though is that you're in the right place. So let me show you where these problems come from so that you can learn how to use practice questions to get better marks than you ever have before. Here are 10 practice questions that I've gotten ChatGPT to write for me. Usually when we go through exams, we would probably pick the answers and then mark the answers straight away ourselves using the answer keys. But there are actually a lot of problems with this, and I'll show you exactly what they are. First, let's say I go to question 1 and I have actually no idea what the answer is. And through the exam, I just guess B. Well, it turns out that B is actually the correct answer. And after marking the exam, I might not actually remember that I didn't know what the answer to question 1 was. In this case, I've actually got a massive gap that I don't know the answer to this question, but I don't realize what it is because I've gotten the question correct by accident. What happens more commonly though is that, for example, with question 2, there might actually be 2 answers that could possibly be correct. In this case, this question is talking about a young woman who presents to the emergency department, and we're kind of thinking about PE with the symptoms that she has. In that case, the most appropriate next investigation we'd probably think about would probably be a CTPA or a VQ scan, because they can both be used to diagnose PE. The thing here though is that we might actually not know why it might be A or D. And in the end, there's a few things that could happen. One thing that can happen is that we might actually pick the answer D, and that would actually be the correct answer. But the thing is, when we're reviewing this paper, we'll see that we got this question right, and we might not actually know why the answer is D and not A. The other thing that can happen is that we might actually, instead of writing D, we might write A. And we might get this question wrong. In this case, when we look at the answers, we might see that the answer says it's D. And when we review this, we might not actually think about it properly because we were already thinking about D as the correct answer, and we might just say, oh yeah, I think I did know that. The thing is here that in this question, the important thing that we need to consider is that this woman is actually 28 years old. And because she's 28 years old, we probably don't want to expose her to unnecessary radiation from a CTPA when we could do a VQ scan instead. The thing is, this answer might actually change depending on what area of the world you're in or the local protocols of your hospital. But the actual learning that you get from this question is figuring out the difference between the 2 answer options and why one would be more correct than another. The last thing that can happen is that we might look at a question like question 3, for example, and we might have no idea what the answer is. We might pick a random option like A and get the question wrong. But then when we're reviewing it and looking at the answers, which says that the answer is B, we might look at that and be like, yeah, she has hypothyroidism, and with these tests, it's most likely to be B. I think I get it. The thing is, in that case, we might recognize that it's the right answer, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the next time we get this question, we'll actually get it correct. All of these problems mean that when we're doing practice questions, we're not actually learning as much as we think we are. We're luring ourselves into a false sense of security, and we might be sabotaging our grades. So now let me share with you the system that I use to fix these problems, and this can let you learn so much faster from your practice exams. In fact, I promise that if you do this properly, you can actually just do 1 or 2 practice exams and get way better marks than if you had done 5 or 6 otherwise. I'm going to take the same 10 practice questions from before, and I'm going to start doing them normally, except this time, for each question, I'm going to write down the topic of the question and how confident I am with my answer on a scale from 1 to 4. For the sake of this, I'm going to make this up because I know the answers. So now for the sake of this example, I've got these questions and I've got my confidence on the right, the topic in the middle, and my answers for each of the questions. The most important thing at this stage is that once I've done these questions, I'm going to make sure that I do not check the answers under any circumstances. In an exam where I have 100 questions, just to make it a bit easier, I might just do one section of 10 to 20 questions at a time. Now what I'll do is I'll look at the questions that I'm not confident on with scores of 1 or 2. So in this, it would be this question 3, for example, question 5, question 8, and question 9. For all of these questions, I'll think about the topic and actually do some study of the topic specific to that question. Let's say with question 3 that I actually had no idea what this question was talking about. I knew it was something to do with the thyroid, and I actually thought it was hyperthyroidism. Then what I would do is I would study this presenting complaint in these tests and figure out why it was one of these options and what these options would actually look like. The important thing is that I don't want to just go into ChatGPT here, put in the question and be like, why is the answer correct? I actually want to do my own study and come to my own conclusions about what each of these things would look like and how they're similar and different, and why one answer option is correct and all of the other answer options are wrong. After doing this study, I essentially want to be at the stage where I have enough knowledge to answer the question with a confidence level of 4. So what I would do is I would do that process for all of these questions where I had a score of 1 or 2. And then once I'd done that, I would actually just rewrite my answers with a different color and actually say my new confidence level for each of the questions. The important thing is that even till now, I have not had a look at the answers to any of these questions. It's only now that I've filled my gaps and had a look at each of these questions and come up with a new answer for them that I'll actually check the answers. The important thing here is that holding yourself back from the answers is what forces you to recognize what you don't know. If you look at the answers early on without coming to the answer yourself, you're likely to think you know something when you actually don't. This also gives the secret for tracking how prepared you are for an exam, and it's to track your confidence score as opposed to your actual marks. In this set of 10 questions, there's 10 questions of which I can get a confidence score from 1 to 4. So the maximum score I could get is 40 if I was confident I got all of the questions right, and the minimum I could get is 10 if I was guessing for all of them. After my first go, I can add up all of my confidence scores here and come up with a confidence score that I had for my first pass. After my second pass, I can add up my new confidence scores and think of actually what my new confidence level is for this set of questions. The really cool thing here is that as you fill your gaps and start recognizing what things you know, you'll see your confidence score slowly rising over time. If your confidence score isn't increasing, that's a sign that you're not filling your gaps enough. As you do more questions and more exams, you'll get more data about what topics you're least confident with and what questions you're struggling with in general. And doing this will let you fill in those gaps specifically and find the highest yield areas of study to do. Using this system will let you be infinitely more prepared and confident for your exams, and you'll see your grades improve massively. I've made this entire system into a free worksheet with a template on how you can format this into a Google Sheet. So click the link in the description for that, and I'll see you all in the next one.